professional serving community. talkradio.nyc.
Back, Philanthropy and Focus. This is where I focus every Friday morning on meeting with a leader of a nonprofit organization, as I like to say, to help them tell their story and amplify their message. I call myself Tommy D. Well, everybody calls me that, but I also call myself the Nonprofit Sector Connector. And every week on this show, I have the honor and privilege to connect with another organization, another leader. We're somewhere about 180 episodes of this show. I'm super excited. I had a meeting this week. There's a whole new thing, a whole new project we're going to be working on. Tommy D on location, working in and out with a nonprofit organization. We're going to turn it into a show. It's going to be a web series. I keep putting it out there to the universe because I'm talking to people about it. And I want everybody to know about it so you can say, hey, what's going on with that thing you were talking about? Because then you can all hold me accountable. I want to make a quick acknowledgement. First, Chantal, Bilodeau, my new friend. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
I just want to say, I before we get into the organization, the great work that's going on, I feel it appropriate, having been on your website this morning and having not done this, maybe one other time on this program have I ever done what I'd like to do real quick is I used to go to a show early COVID. It was called Remote Daily, and we would go to this place. It was a Zoom meeting back when Zoom meetings were, not ubiquitous, and I would go and there was a woman who I became friendly with who, shout out to Britt. We haven't spoken in a while, Britt fan, but I see what you're doing in the world. And she would do a land acknowledgement at the beginning of this show. And I noticed on your website this morning that there's a land acknowledgement right on the bottom of the website. So I thought it appropriate to do a quick land acknowledgement here on Philanthropy and Focus. So I'm actually coming to you from my attic, which is on the Long Island, on Long Island. And I'm, the original indigenous people of this area. There was many, many tribes here on Long Island, the Canarsies, the Rockaways, the Merricks, the Massapequas. But where I come from, where I stand right now, is the land that was originally inhabited by the Matinacocks. So I would just like to acknowledge and pay respect to the Matinacock people who have stewarded this land and these waters through the generations. And I extend my respect and the respect of the people in my world, Philanthropy and Focus, to all indigenous people everywhere. So I was inspired to do that, Chantal, by your website this morning and kind of put that and kind of, I think it's only appropriate in some of the conversations and dialogues I think we'll have this morning to do that this morning. So I just want to put that out there to the universe and put those vibes out. So
thank you for doing that.
Thank you. And thank you for inspiring me to do that, because on your website, I will read on your website, it says the Arts and Climate Initiative is located on the island of Manhattan in New York City, what is traditionally known as Manhattan. And you acknowledge and respect the Lenape people, right? Because they stewarded the land of Manhattan. So, so important that we did that. And I feel inspired, and hopefully some folks who have never experienced that, I hope I did an okay job at it this morning, but always looking to grow and improve. So thank you for giving me that opportunity to do that. So what I'd really like to do now is roll into what we always do on this show, which to me it's the fun of what I get to do here, because I learn about somebody, I learn about their background, I learn about their journey, and ultimately what took them to either take on leadership at a nonprofit organization or found a nonprofit organization, right? Or work programs in a nonprofit. I mean, that's just the opportunity I get. But the story of the individual to me is critically important to the story about the work they do with the organization. So, and people keep coming back and checking in and paying attention. So we must be doing something right. So we'll keep with that format. So if you would, my dear Chantal, would you introduce yourself, please? Your name, who you are in the organization, and then let's dive into what happened. How did we get here? How did we get to this point?
Of course. I'm Chantal Bilodeau. I am a playwright and the artistic director of the Arts and Climate Initiative, which is mostly a theater organization. Our mission is to engage the climate crisis through storytelling and live performance.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm a bit of a storyteller myself, and that's why I'm excited about this new thing we're going to do, which is going to be where I go out and spend a full day with a nonprofit. We get a lot of video and see a lot of me in the trenches, so to speak, about what's going on and kind of doing these, sidebar interviews with different people in the organization because I think the work is what is most important to tell that story. So when you talk about telling stories as a playwright, many playwrights may just tell fictional stories. And yes, there's a message and things like that, but why were you drawn to this type of work with around the climate initiative and telling these stories? What was it, and how does that even turn into, hey, you know what? We actually have to found an organization now. Like why does that even come up for you? Can you take us down that road?
Yeah, so when I started as a playwright, I was writing, plays about various topics, like just any playwright. And it was about 7 or 8 years into it, I went to Alaska because I had a friend there who I'd never visited. And this was back in 2007. And this friend runs an air taxi company out of Denali National Park. So I got to fly with him, fly over glaciers, mountains. I mean, it was pretty spectacular. And of course, it was very visible how the climate was impacting the environment there. And also, 2007 was 1 year after Al Gore's documentary An Inconvenient Truth, the first one came out. So there was more talk about the climate crisis in public conversation. And the combination of these two things made me think like, oh, maybe, maybe I can do my part. Maybe, and since my skills is to write for theater, maybe I can write a play about this issue. And since I'm originally from Canada, and we have a huge Arctic territory compared to the US, I started doing research there. And then I was lucky enough to be commissioned by a theater company to go to the Canadian Arctic and see what was going on there. And that became the first of a series of plays about how climate change is impacting the Arctic. And after writing this first play, which is called Sila, that's an Inuktitut word that means breath, air, wind. And it's the basis of the cosmology in Inuit culture. It's where you come from and where you go back to. So this place, Sila, um, I spent several years researching it. And and just to be clear, my plays are fiction, but they're fact-based fiction, I guess I like to say. So they're based on research and on things that are really happening, and then I turned that into fiction. So after writing this first play, I wasn't done. I'm like, oh, I really like this topic. I like researching it. I like the people I'm talking to. I like the regions I'm seeing. How can I turn that into more in a way that's cohesive? And so since there are 8 countries that are part of the Arctic, I decided, okay, I'm going to write one play for each country in the Arctic, and it's going to be called the Arctic Cycle.
So the Arctic cycle. So that's actually sounds like a pretty good move there because does that mean you got to visit all these places in order to do some research for your writing?
Yeah, I'm only halfway into it. So
Oh,
I'm working on the fourth country now. I have 4 more to go, but yes, I'm visiting each place.
that's pretty cool, man. I like that angle. Very sneaky of you, Chantal. I like I want to go back. I mean, there's so much here to talk about. I just you said when you were in Alaska in the air taxis, it was very visible, right? That the glaciers were receding and obviously melting. And were you like, did you have any sort of scientific background before this? Was this something that you had interest in, planetary things or geography or, or climate? Did you have interest there growing up even before you kind of got involved with this work?
Yeah, I have no scientific background, but I've always been interested in the environment. I'm a big hiker.
Uh,
My father was a hunter, fisherman, like spent a lot of time outdoors and took me with him. He was also a bush pilot as a side,
What's that?
um, fi flying like small planes, Cessna planes.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you like
So
you like those planes? Like, are you comfortable in there?
it makes me sick,
Yeah.
but I like it. Yeah. I'm not afraid. I just get motion sickness.
Me too. It's the worst because like like even when I take the kids to like Hershey Park in Pennsylvania, it's like I can't go on any of those rides. And ever since I was a little kid, like I always got motion sickness. And people go, "Oh, you're scared?" I'm not really scared. I just don't want to ruin my whole day feeling terrible for the rest of the day. Like that's what
Right.
it is, you know? Um, and I've gotten like so challenged with it. Like I don't even do well in a taxi cab. Like my wife doesn't really drive when we're together. I drive because I don't like being driven around. It's like it's not a good thing. Motion sickness, terrible. And for me, it's not something I've ever overcome. I don't know about you, but so being in a tiny little plane, not the only time I will tell you, we were in Canada. We were I used to work for a company called ADP, the big payroll, national and global company, ADP, right? And we had my wife and I were with some friends because I'd qualified for President's Club this year, and we were in Whistler in British Columbia, and I'd qualified for the trip, but I guess I did a little better, and I qualified for this additional couple of days in Victoria Island, and we flew in on one of these planes. It wasn't like a two, three-seater, four-seater. It was like 10 people on the plane, right? But it was a plane that landed on the water, and the
Mm,
water in Whistler is unbelievable. And then when we went to this Victoria Island, it was just like this green color, but not green like the Long Island, like the Long Island Sound or the Atlantic Ocean by Long Island, but it was like a different color green. I don't know how to explain it. It was beautiful, but I was okay on that plane. But who knows? I might have had a bunch of Dramamine because I knew I was going on that plane. So you grew up going on those planes with your dad though?
yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And they did land on water a lot of the time because my dad liked to go to lakes that were only accessible by plane.
Yeah, how cool is that? That's pretty cool stuff. Hey, listen, I guess that's better than just going on a roller coaster and getting sick. I mean,
Yeah.
so we gotta we I wanted to hit that part on the science because although you don't necessarily have a scientific education or a background, I mean this is our planet, right? We started with that land acknowledgement up front because we only get one planet. I know our friend Elon is trying to make us a multi-planet species and get us to Mars and everything like that. I don't think I'll be here long enough to experience that, but I think we need to, as a society, as a race, realize what we're doing and what we've done and what we have to do to kind of fix and pump the brakes on what we've done, right?
Yeah, and we also everything you say is true, but we also can't just focus on the negative. So I think we have to recognize what's there and appreciate it and love it, and that's going to make us want to protect it.
I love that. I love that. What a good thing, not just punitive, like we screwed this place up, but look at how beautiful this is and how do we conserve it and protect it and honor it, right?
Yeah, and make it available to the next generations.
100%. We're gonna go to break in a second, but I'm trying to remember who I was texting with. Oh, I know who it was. It was my friend Daryl. He's been on the show. Daryl and I were texting, and he said, "I'm going for a run in Central Park," and he texted me some pictures of like what Central Park looked like. And I said, it's so important that someone had the vision. When you go into Manhattan and you have skyscrapers everywhere, it was so important that someone had the vision to say, we have to put this sanctuary aside. We have to protect this green space. And because if not, capitalism might have come in and said, hey, we could put bunch more buildings here, right? We could develop this area. And I think that's part of the education and the honoring of what we have here in nature is to say like we must protect this and honor it and be aware of that. We have to have it, right?
Yeah, and especially when we have something like Central Park, we recognize how much we need it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially again, having living out on Long Island. I was at an event yesterday, and we were helping this woman. One of my other ventures is the Philanthropy Network of New York, and we do volunteer events for businesses and our clients, employees get involved. And yesterday we had an event where we were collecting clothing for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Long Island, and they're able to take that clothing and sell it to a thrift shop, out a big thrift company, and it ends up being $1.6 million a year to the budget of this nonprofit, Big Brothers Big Sisters Long Island. That's not the story, but I always like to tell the whole commercial. But the story is, one of these women, her name's Rose, and I was helping her get the clothes out of her car, and she goes, just don't take the beach chair. And I laugh because I travel with a beach chair in my car as well, because you never know, man. I may just run into some sand that I need to sit on. I mean, there may be some water that I need to sit beside, and we're fortunate like that. But in other parts of New York for sure, it's not always a place where you can kind of crash out by the water and the beach. So, but we got to talk more about that maybe later. We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, I want to understand. We can talk about the 4 of the 8, or you're on number 4. You're on country number 4 right now.
Yes.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that journey that you're on, and I also want to really focus on the journey that the organization is on. And I know because the way Chantal and I met everybody is, her organization was a semifinalist in the New York City Imagine Awards, and I get the incredible honor to interview people when they're semifinalists in the New York City Imagine Awards, and that's how we connected. So I know there's every 2 years there's a festival we're going to talk about. So there's so much to really uncover while we're here today together. And I'm like 3 minutes over on our first break, which is classic. That's how the show works. We're going to take a quick break. Chantal and Tommy D in the attic, Philanthropy and Focus. Right back.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
We are back. We are back. We are back. I would just say this, Chantal. I have no training as an actor, but if you ever just needed kind of a personality in one of your plays, I would like to try out. I'm not so bougie. I will read for the part. I don't expect any handouts, man, but maybe I could be in one of your plays. No, you don't have to. I'm not putting you on the spot. Don't respond. You don't have to respond right now. But one day, maybe we can work together. That would be fun.
That sounds good.
I'm a bit of a showman, I like to say, like I would like to be like P.T. Barnum one day, like that, like the greatest showman. All right, so let's do this. I want to read a little bit of your background. So you shared it with us, but you're a Montreal-born, New York-based playwright whose work focuses on the intersection of storytelling and the climate crisis. In her capacity as an artistic director of the Arts and Climate Initiative, she has spearheaded local and global initiatives for nearly 2 decades, engaging theater and educational communities, as well as audiences in the U.S. and abroad, in climate action through programming that includes live events, talks, publications, workshops, artist convenings, and a worldwide distributed theater festival, which we'll get into today. I was actually reading that to let people know, but I was also trying out for one of your plays when I read that. So I was trying to be very specific when I read and make the pauses in the right spots and stuff.
He did very well.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you for the compliment. I needed that. I need compliments. I need a shot in the arm every now and again. So, you know, this was something that came to you out of an opportunity. See, like in nonprofit, we talk a lot about time, treasure, and talent. And what I was thinking when, from your perspective is your talent is a playwright, you're a writer, you're a storyteller. You saw, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you saw an opportunity that needed to be told, a story that needed to be told. And you said, well, here's what I'm real good at. This is my skill set. Let me utilize what I do to tell these stories. I mean, that sounds like what it is, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would frame it slightly differently. You say I saw an opportunity, and I would say I saw a lack of something.
Wow.
You
Yeah,
know, I saw something that should have been there that wasn't there. And so I decided to fill the void.
I love that. So responsibility, maybe, and you had the responsibility and said, this is not being done. I need to lean in and do this thing.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Listen, gang, you want to change the world? Do yourself a favor, change the world. That's how it works. Like, don't wait for somebody else to do it, man. Just do it. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tell me some stories. Tell me like about when, the travels and some of the plays that you've written. And then eventually I promise we're going to get into more of the organization side, but I want to hear your stories.
I can tell you, so the plays that I have written, the first one was about Canada, then Norway, then the US, about Alaska, and now the one I'm working on is about Iceland.
Okay.
And so I'll tell you a little bit. I was just in Iceland this year. I went in February, and I
It's
went
very
again
popular.
in
People
June.
love it.
Yeah,
It's like super. Everybody I talk to, we're going to Iceland. Like that's become like, I got to be honest. Like I think I remember 20 years ago, nobody was talking about Iceland. I feel like in the last 10 years, like everybody's going to Iceland, right?
yeah. I mean, it's a super beautiful place. I think people are going because they want to see glaciers before they go. It's also an easy place to get to from New York.
It is.
So yeah, it's a direct flight, and it's I think 5 hours.
Okay.
It's pretty easy. Yeah. So the story about Iceland was that I heard a few years ago that there's a glacier in Iceland that was declared dead from climate change, and it was the first named glacier to be declared dead by climate change. And a couple of anthropologists from Rice University organized essentially a funeral for that glacier, and they put a plaque at the nearby the glacier, and so it became this big news. And I thought, oh, that what a great idea, what a great inspiration for a play. And they've essentially done all the research for me. So I started looking more into it, and I talked to these anthropologists who it turned out I already knew. And I went to Iceland to get a sense of the country, get a sense of the lore. They have a lot of stories there, and to be able to hike that glacier is in an old crater, so or that what remains of that glacier. So to be able to hike there and see it, and that's going to be turned into a play that's called Requiem for a Glacier.
Requiem for a Glacier.
Yes.
How long are your plays? Are they 3 acts? Is it, like
No, they're most theater nowadays is under 2 hours, so they tend to be 90 minutes.
90 minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What would so Requiem for a Glacier, and you're working on that now?
Yeah.
Okay. What is that process like? I mean, how long does it? I'm sure it's not an exact. Tommy, it's going to take me 6 months to do this. Like, what is the time frame to write a play, and then what do you? Because I've never really been involved. Actually, all right. I fibbed a little bit. In the 6th grade, I was the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz at Washington Street School in Franklin Square out here on Long Island. So shout out to Diana Citarella, who was our gym teacher, who was in charge of that play. She was a good friend of mine many years ago, and I got to play the Tin Man in the 6th grade. So that was aside from what I do in the world, that was like my one role that when I was actually on the stage. So I know that much about plays, but what does it take to, you have to write in individual parts, right? There's dialogue, there's a storyline, like without running a class for us here, but like, what does it look like? How do you even sit down and write a play?
It varies from people to people because I know playwrights who can write a play in a week, which is
Okay.
not my case. It takes me, I'm a slow writer and I need to let it sit with me for a long time in order to be able to write it. Uh, so I do all the research up front and then I will write the play over the course of several months, let's say maybe between 3 and 6 months usually, and that will give me a first draft.
Mhm.
And then we do what we call workshopping a play, which means having actors read the parts and then hearing it out loud for the first time. And it's always different when you read it on a page and you hear it.
Yeah.
And when you hear it, you realize, okay, this part's not working. There needs to be a little bit of this, a little bit less of that. And then you work on that to then create a second draft, and then the process moves along until you go to production.
Is there always though, see, like I'm here, if I was writing a story, right, I would write the story, but with a play, there's dialogue too. I mean, in a book, there's dialogue, right? But I'm wondering, like, do you write a story and then inside of the story, you write like, here's what this person said and here's what this character said. Is it that, or is it like that first draft is like, it's just you start at the top of the page and keep writing? Like, I'm curious about that.
It's all dialogue, so I don't write. Some people write outlines,
Okay.
especially when there's several collaborators on for musicals, for example, they'll write outlines. In my case, I don't, and
Okay.
I don't necessarily write in order either. So sometimes I can write a scene if I know like this particular scene for sure needs to happen, and it's in the middle of the play. I may start with that, and then go backwards and work to it. Yeah.
So fun. That is so fun. Um, I want to ask you, like, does nature like have a part in most of these plays? Like, is it representative of, and if that's the secret, then tell me I can't share my secrets with you. But I'm like curious, like, does somebody play nature? Like, but it's a person, like, is it a personification of something?
It's really interesting you asking that question because most people don't think of that. But yes, nature plays a part, and I give it different characters sometimes. Like I have a play where polar bears have parts and
Mhm.
talk. There's another play where sea ice is a character.
Yes.
Yeah. What else do I have? Oh, there's another play where there's a whale as a character. So I tend to always have non-humans as characters in those plays.
I love that because and that resonates with me. And I haven't seen your plays, and I want to, um, but it resonates with me because isn't that it isn't just us, man. It's not just you and me. There's other inhabitants of this planet, and they don't have the same abilities that we have. Like if we're screwing this thing up for us, we're screwing it up for them too, and they can't go, "Oh, it's all good. I'll just move further inland." No, no, no. I live on ice, and there's less ice, and that doesn't right. And that, I mean, I want to learn more and more about the work you and the other collaborators and the other playwrights are doing because I'd like to become involved with what you're doing to help tell the story more so than just today, Chantal, where I can say, "Hey, look, this is what's going on," and it's entertaining and educating, right? Like, isn't that the fun? Isn't that the cool thing? Like, you know, it's kind of like the trick of like Sesame Street or something like that. Not to say that your work is like Sesame Street, but it's the thing where like kids are learning, but it's like at the end of the Sesame Street episode, it was A and at number three. This was brought to you in part by letter A and number seven or number three or something like that, right? So I think it's so important that it's not just a story, but it's a story that has the impact, and that's I think a large part of what the Arts and Climate Initiative is all about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we got to go to a quick break because I screwed up the first one, so I'll try to make the second one better. So we'll go to a break real quick. We'll hear some commercials. We'll come back, and let's take this into how is this organization collaborative? Like, what does it actually mean? I know when I looked on your website, there's other artistic directors, there's other collaborators. What is that community like? And when can I come hang out with you all? Because you seem like you're onto something that I'd like to be a part of. So it's I guess in whatever order you want, like when can I come hang out with you all? That could be one question. And then, but really it's what does this community look like? And I'm assuming it's not just the local community, there's outreach around the planet, and then with the festival and how we can all help out. How's that sound?
That sounds good. I'll tell you everything about it.
All right, we'll be right back. That's the show. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Back. And we're back. So we can make a musical too, Chantal. The Arts and Climate Initiative. So this is right off the website, gang. If you're only listening and not watching, artsandclimate.org. artsandclimate.org. The Arts and Climate Initiative uses storytelling and live performance to foster dialogue about our global climate crisis, create an empowering vision of the future, and inspire people to take action. Operating on the principle that complex problems must be addressed through collaborative efforts, we work with artists across disciplines and geographic borders, solicit input from researchers in the humanities, natural sciences, and social sciences, and actively seek community and educational partners. Man, that sounds like collaboration if I've ever heard it. I mean, that's what it is, right? Let's bring the best minds, and create that mastermind and bring the people, when two or more minds get together, there's this additional mind that gets created. Shout out to Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. But it's this is an important conversation that we have to have, right? And I love what you framed with me earlier this morning on the show here and said, Tommy, it's not just the negative. We have to focus on the beauty and things like that, right? Because I think there is we don't discuss politics on the show. I try to avoid it in my real life, not just on the show. But there's this this thing becomes obviously politicized, this whole climate thing as well, which it's not about that. It's about things are not going great in some of the decisions that have been made, and we have this beautiful planet, right? So how do we continue to address and conserve this beautiful planet? So, Chantal, what say you on that?
I think you're totally right. So the Arts and Climate Initiative, we have various programs, as you read in the mission. One of them is something that happens once a year, which I just finished in June. It's called the Incubator, and we bring together 20 people when I first started this program, I thought, okay, I'm going to bring together 20 artists, and then people would contact me and say, I'm a scientist, can I participate? I'm an activist, can I participate? So it's really open to everybody who's interested in thinking about the intersection of arts and climate. And for a week, it's a little bit of a think tank / workshop. And so for a week, we think together about what this field is, what impact we want to have, how we can increase our impact, and how we can uplift each other. And again, this came about because, just like the organization, because I saw this is something I wanted for myself and it just wasn't there. And so I thought, okay, I'll just create it and it'll serve me and it'll serve other people at the same time.
Yeah. Isn't that the best stuff? Like, I don't encourage everybody to go out and found a nonprofit organization. In fact, I would say to you, hey gang, if you have a great idea or a great program, there might be an organization you want to partner up with. I would definitely say that, because uh, and that's not to discourage somebody. That's just to say, we might be able to start on second base instead of in the batter's box if there's something already. That's a baseball reference. Let's go Mets. But like, if we can collaborate, so maybe someone's idea is incredible and you can partner up with somebody on it, right? Because starting a nonprofit organization is not just like, you know, it's not no big deal. Now you're running a business, just happens to have a nonprofit status. But on the other side, my other part of my brain says, get out there, do the thing, try the thing. So, so in this case, you saw this opportunity and there was nothing fulfilling this need, similar to there was not now something fulfilling the need of what the planet needed. And you saw that opportunity to lean in, right? And take on that, I'll use the word responsibility of making this thing happen. So that's where the creation of this organization comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, and the organization was really an extension of my work as a playwright. I wanted to give myself more power, I
Mhm.
think, to do things. And in the arts funding world, you can either get funding as an individual or as an organization. And of course, there's a lot more opportunities as an organization. So that was why I went the nonprofit way.
Yeah.
And it was also because I felt, okay, it's very nice. I'm a playwright. I put out these plays that take forever to write and to produce. But we need a lot more people, a lot more voices. And again, I wanted to have to create a whole community.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's funny, something's popping up for me because when we first spoke, it was a bunch of months ago, and I'm not very good at closing windows on my computer. And it's my computer says to me some days, it doesn't really say this, but it's like, hey, Tommy D, I'm gonna just shut down on you right now because you haven't let me like take a break and shut down. And maybe that's an extension of my own brain and things like that. But I had a website pulled up for Howl Round. Am I saying
Yeah.
Howl Round?
Yes.
And that was like on my computer, and it probably still is. There's got to be 900 tabs open in different browsers on this computer right now. And that was something that you had shared with me on our meeting, which was months and months ago. And I want to talk a little bit about that because that was just something that was very interesting. Is that a production company? Is that a way you get your work out there?
HowlRound is they call themselves the Theater Commons,
Okay.
and they have two parts. One part is a journal, and one part is a HowlRound TV they call. So they do a lot of live streaming. But the journal part is the part that I'm involved with, and that's I've been curating a series about theater. It's called the series is called Theater in the Age of Climate Change for them for I think 6 or 7 years, something like that. And it's published over the course of a week, and it's about 5 different artists who write about their own involvement with the climate through theater.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just, it was something that was popping up for me, and I knew I wanted to get it on the show because I want to learn more about it and spend some time about that with you. Because as I was in a meeting about this new project I'm talking about, I was like, we're looking to get, what's this? Where do we go with it? I'm working with a production company. What do we do with this thing? Where are we going to go streaming it? Are we just going to do it on a YouTube? And like, there's so many different, you know, from a playwright's perspective, as I understand plays, it's live, right? However, I'm assuming like, like you make a movie or you make a TV show and it's like quote unquote in the can, right? You make a play, well, we got to make the play again tomorrow night, or we're going to make the play next Sunday at 8 p.m., right? Like you've created the work, but now we have to actually do the performance piece. Has that like, I mean, I know I could find a musical. I could watch Guys and Dolls. It's on, I have a CD of it, a DVD. I can plug that in, right? Or I can go see somebody do Guys and Dolls on Broadway, right? So is that a thing where like much of the work you and your co-collaborators do is then recorded and it's like accessible at different times when people want it, like on demand?
No, it's only live.
It is. Oh, that's
Yeah,
even better.
yeah. And there are many reasons for that. One being that it's a complicated agreement with the actors union. And so if you want to stream something, have it on demand, you have to have different contracts with the actors than if they're performing live. Yeah. We do have recordings most of the time for archival purposes.
Right.
But they're not available for public watching.
I think that's even better because that means it's in the real, you're in the moment, like it's when it's happening, you know. And a cool thing live is just so great because things happen. Not
Yeah,
everything's perfect, you know.
yeah.
It's not. All right, it's like, all right, cut. Okay, we'll start. We'll edit that up. No, no, this is it. Like these are live human beings, like in front of you, and things are gonna happen. Yeah,
And theater is not it's just not the same if you watch it,
yeah.
on the screen. You don't get the same experience as if you watch it live. It's a live art form.
I love that. Yeah, I can't wait to come out to some of the work you all are doing. The thing I want to go to now is when we talked, a few weeks back, maybe it was a month and a half ago. One of the things was there was these plays that, and this might be during the festival, which we can talk about now. There was like there was these works that could be shared, and then people would perform them in like smaller settings. Can you know what I'm talking about? I don't apparently know what I'm talking about. So can you help me remind me and the listeners what that was about?
Yeah, that's a pretty good intro though. You remember well.
Thank you.
So every 2 years, I co-run a festival called Climate Change Theater Action. And this was founded in 2015 with three other colleagues who now have moved on. And now it's become a collaboration between my organization, the Arts and Climate Initiative, and an organization called the Center for Sustainable Practice in the Arts. And they are based in Canada. What it is we commissioned 50 playwrights from around the world. So all of the continents are represented. We give them a prompt and we ask them to write a 5 to 10 minute play in response to that prompt. That gives us a collection of 50 plays, which we then make available for free to anyone, anywhere in the world who might be interested in organizing an event during a certain time window, which is in the fall. So we create a kind of movement where, we were just talking about theater being live. So you don't perform a play for 10,000 people, right? Usually it's like, especially if you're a small organization or just an artist trying to do it, you'll perform for 50, 100, 200.
Right.
And it can feel very insignificant if you're doing that on your own. But if you have 200 people, in 20 countries doing the same thing, and suddenly you're reaching 5 and 10,000 people, it's a lot more exciting. And so that's this sort of movement that we want to create. And we felt like if we just give people the tools, these plays, which require no experience, there's no limitation. Some people have done them in their own backyards and read them with friends, and some universities will put them on their main stage so people can do what they want with them.
That's really cool. So they're short. So does that, like, if you give that example of like a university might have them on their performing arts center and have their drama group do that stuff, do you find that if it was going to be at that level of presentation, they would do a handful of these, like little vignettes, little plays, right? Like, maybe we're going to do 10, right? Or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And then as part of the presentation, we ask, because it's called Climate Change Theater Action,
Yes.
we ask that they include some kind of action as part of the show. So after maybe the plays, sometimes they have a conversation with scientists, or there was a university in India, they went and cleaned out a river. Sometimes there's been a group that has given money to indigenous organizations that take care of the land, or they'll give money to tree planting initiatives. So again, each group can decide what's more meaningful for their community, and they do that.
That's so important because that's the ripple effect, right? Like this is important to educate people and educate them through this performance. And then it's now what? What are you going to do next? And like as a ripple effect, you're seeing, I in my mind now, I've seen it as college students. So I think was it a college in India? Is that what you said, that they cleaned the
Yeah.
river?
Yeah.
So game changer. Game changer. I'm inspired now to go out and do this thing because I just learned and I realized, well, my hands can make a change on this planet. Let me get out there and clean this river. Let me get out and be involved. That's it. I mean, Chantal, thank you. And thank you. We're not doing the show, but I must show gratitude now because like what you and your collaborators are doing is, as I say, changing the world. And I have this coffee mug around here. And it's a joke. It says, it's a joke because it says, no big deal, just changing the world. Because my cute little wink to the world is, it is a big deal. Of course it is. And it's a big deal when these young people are now inspired from seeing these performances from that festival to go out and change the world. It's inspiring for people to hear this story that we're talking about today to say, hey, I can make a difference in my neighborhood. I grew up in a generation, so I'm 46 years old, right? I'm not embarrassed to say what I'm going to say because it's true and I did it and it was wrong and I know as an adult that it was wrong. But I grew up at a time where people threw trash out of the window of your car. You'd
I
eat,
remember that.
you
Yeah.
remember? You'd
Yeah.
eat fast food and then you'd wing the trash out the window. And I'm like, so I'm embarrassed is the wrong word. I'm regretful that that was what went on in my life and I did that. And like, I see something blowing down the street, I pick it up now, go trash
Yeah.
the trash bag, but I remember that was like a now I see somebody do that. I'm like, oh, I'm like, you still exist? Like they still have people like you that just throw your soda cup out of the window? Unfortunately, they do. There's people who still do it. But my point is, it's about change and evolution. And when these people, I go back to this story about India now, these young people go out there and they change the world based on the work they're doing. And if it isn't for people like you and your team, Chantal, then the world doesn't change. So we're not done yet, but I want to say thank you for just doing that and acknowledge that. Because I know something about nonprofits. We don't always get enough gratitude for the work that's being done. And I want to just say, like, if I'm at a gala, we'll go into a commercial in a second. If I'm at a gala and somebody comes up to me to check me in, and I know they don't work for the organization, I know they're volunteering, I very deliberately say, thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for volunteering. I appreciate it. Because the volunteers often go unseen too,
Yeah.
It's important to acknowledge people because guess what? They don't have to be there doing that. They could be at their office running their business with their children. So they're volunteering. So make sure, gang, you thank your volunteers and appreciate them. We're going to take a quick break. We come back. I want to know future. How do we help? Who do you want to meet? How can I help? How can my network help? Obviously, we always going to talk about in our sector, well, we need funds, Tommy, to run programming. Of course we do, right? So we can mention that if you have any fundraisers coming up. In addition to that, you might say, Tommy, we need theater space. Or you know what, Tommy, we need collaborators who do this. So we need an organization who does that. I'm going to let you think about that for the next 45 seconds, Chantal. When we come back, we'll talk about it. The show is Philanthropy in Focus. Your boy is the Nonprofit Sector Connector. We're right back.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the Nonprofit Sector Connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
That's a funny song. I love that song. I sing that song around my house sometimes. And it's important. The lyrics of that song are nonprofits need connections to move in right directions. And then you say cut through all static, join Tommy in the attic. But nonprofits need connections to move in right direction. Shout out to Brendan Levy, my good friend. I call him Uncle Brendan, Queens Chamber of Commerce. But he's also the lead singer in the band Damaged Goods. And that's critically important. Not that Brendan's in that band, but it's critically important to think about the connections, because the connections is where it all happens. It's all about the overlap of community and where this all happens. So I wrote down upcoming events, community, and how to check in, how to keep in community with you and your organization. So we call this the lightning round. Logan put in the chat that we were all, chatting earlier, the lightning round. So I call it because I always wanted to be a game show host. And I was telling my friend who's the producer of what we're going to do up and coming, the new show. And he's like, of course I could see you being a game show host. And I go, well, yeah, that makes sense. So this is kind of like my little game show. What's upcoming for the organization, Chantal? I know the festival is biannual, right? Every 2 years. But like, what's upcoming? Are there fundraisers? How do we plug in? What's the community look like? Whether it be an online community or in person. Tell us about that.
The one thing we have upcoming, and unfortunately I don't have the date yet, but we're going to be launching an anthology which includes all of the plays that were written and produced in 2023 for that festival. And that's going to happen this fall. And the best way to find out is to sign up for our mailing list, which is on our website. There's a contact button on the Arts and Climate Initiative website.
I may share that while you continue to talk. I'll share the screen and I'll show people while you're talking. So thank you for that. You said you want them to get the newsletter, right? So let me just share that page real quick.
Yes.
And while you're talking, so that's a way. I mean, we talked about HowlRound. Am I saying it right? HowlRound or HowlRound, right?
HowlRound, yeah.
So that sounds like it's certainly a place to be in community with folks like you all. But is there, is there groups? Is there Facebook group, LinkedIn group, like follow on Instagram? Like where do you want us to plug into what you're doing?
Yeah, we're on Facebook and Instagram. And again, Arts and Climate. Actually, Arts and Climate is our handle, not with the initiative.
Okay.
On Facebook and Instagram, you can follow us there. We also have a website called climatechangetheateraction.com. That's for specifically for the festival. And you can see a lot of the events that have taken place. You can also see there are some events that are taking place outside the festival, what we call CCTA Fringe. CCTA stands for Climate Change Theater Action. Okay. So you can see some of those there. And when we start, towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, we'll start gearing up for the 2025 festival, which will be our 10th year anniversary. You can find.
So I'm not going to miss one. So we didn't do one in 24. So we did the last 23. All right. Yes. So do we have dates on 25?
25. Oh, wow. So it's in the fall. I think, if I remember correctly, I think it's September 19th to December 20th, something like that.
All right. Well, we'll just have to come back and you'll tell me about it, as we get closer, and maybe in spring or summer of next year. We'll talk more about that. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So those are events. And then what if I want to see a play? Like, is there something coming up at all, whether it be your work or somebody else's work? And I guess before you say that, how often, so the one you're working on right now is Iceland, right? Which is Requiem for a Glacier. So when that's complete, what happens next? Like, how often is it gonna show? Is it just a small window that you can see the performances?
Actually, that play in December, again, I don't have the exact dates, but in December, there will be a showing of an excerpt. Okay. And that play, I'm working with a composer and a director, so there's going to be some music and we'll show, and that's going to be in New York City. And again, if people sign up for our newsletter, they'll find out about it. It's going to be in December. In terms of when things show, then it depends. Like that play, we're not, the Arts and Climate Initiative is not going to produce that play because that's too big for us. It has to be a theater who's more established, and I don't have anybody who's like signed up for it at the moment because the play is not written.
But so then there's an ask. There's a direct ask that
Yes.
so maybe there's a theater. There's a gang called the Astoria Filmmakers Club. Again, not exactly what you all do, but adjacent to it. Excuse me. Maybe there's some connections there. I have another good friend of mine who's done some work with some networks and things like that. You know, just relationships in the space. Maybe we can look at leveraging. But that's what I try to challenge people with. Is that's what the direct ask is on this show. It's like, what are you looking for? Who can we connect you with? That sort of stuff. Like who's in the know about what your needs might be. I'd encourage you. So because we met through the Imagine Awards, the New York City Imagine Awards, are you connected to this organization we founded called the Nonprofit Resource Hub? Have we gotten you connected yet?
No.
We're going to make that happen. I'll have our executive director, Allison LaFelita, reach out and connect with you. It's free for nonprofits to be a member of it. And it's just that it's a resource group for nonprofits. We have over 425 nonprofits that are part of this community of what we're doing. So, and it, you know, I think the other thing is tapping into the networks and saying, hey, who do you know? And I'm sure you have a network already in the arts, but there might be somebody that we could be helpful with. And that's what I'm looking to do. So what I would encourage you to do is just send me more information when we talk again. Like, hey, Tommy, here's what we would need. The theater would have to be this big. Because I don't even know what the parameters are on these things, you know. So you got to educate me and some folks, and I'll do what I can to help out. What else? Is there anything else that like you would want from us to be aware of or know about that we can help telling the good work you're doing?
The other thing is we're always looking for collaborators. So I'm talking to an organization right now, which is going to be part of Climate Week NYC. And they, you know, they reached out to us and they say, hey, we may want to include some artistic component in our talks, you know, can we do something? So anybody who, we have these short plays, they're easy to present. Sometimes it's a nice intro into something that's more heavy or more serious or more scientific. So we're always looking for people to work with so we can bring theater outside of the theater into other types of environments.
I mean, thank you, because you just shared something. I Googled it real quick. Climate Week NYC is September 22nd through 29th, organized by Climate Group. I mean, I didn't even know about that. It was like the final question I asked you, and now there's a whole thing now that I can talk about and help expose. And if you're going to be there, let me know. Maybe we can kind of hang out there that day or those days. It looks like it's a week long. It's called a week, Tommy. It's called Climate Week, not Climate Day. So listen, Chantal, Bilodeau, my friend, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for what you're doing in the world, and thank you for making the world a better place. And thank you everybody else for listening and connecting and helping this, this little salesman up in an attic live out his dream. So everybody, make it a great day. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chantal. Bye.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all